It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis. Sorry for the technical difficulties to start out the show, but we have a quick episode for you today. We have the top quarter rankings of the NFL, and we will not waste any time. We are going to go straight into number 8, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos staying at number 8. By the way, we had breaking news right before we went on air. The Chicago Cubs have traded Cody Bellinger to the New York Yankees. That is a big deal. This will also see Cody Petit go from the New York Yankees to the Cubs in this deal. The Yankees just acquiring Cody Bellinger. You guys can probably learn more about this on Dugout Debrief this Thursday afternoon at 12 p.m. Chris DeLuca does a great job hosting our baseball podcast. Denver Broncos staying at number 8 this week after a win pretty convincingly against the Indianapolis Colts. Bo Nix, he struggled. 3 interceptions, couldn't get a ground game going, but the defense stepped up. Anthony Richardson was 17 of 38, 172 yards and 2 picks. Jonathan Taylor did get 100 yards on the ground, but when you are down 13-10 going into the fourth quarter and you rally 21 straight, Bo Nix getting 2 of those touchdowns himself. It shows great poise in order for Bo Nix to step up and really make up for, a lackluster game where he struggled a lot against the Colts. So kudos to Bo Nix beating Anthony Richardson and what I'm calling the Peyton Manning Bowl. Now, coming at number 7, staying at number 7 after last week are the Green Bay Packers. We talked last week about this being the failed Mary reunion return. The Green Bay handled business against the Seattle Seahawks. Jordan Love, 20 of 27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs, 26 carries, 94 yards, 1 touchdown. They jumped out to that 14-0 lead in the first quarter, and Seattle just couldn't respond. Because once it's 14-0, and then Seattle responds with a field goal, but then Green Bay responds with 2 field goals, and all of a sudden you're battling back down 17 at home, and that was the margin for this game. So Green Bay, a big win. They advanced to 10-4 in a really tough division, and you just know there can be several different people who step up. Romeo Doubs was the guy who stepped up this week. 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. And you just don't know who to guard when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. But coming in at number 6, their NFC North rival, the Minnesota Vikings, remaining here at number 6. And I promise, as we get into 5-1, we'll see some variations, some alterations to the last week's top quarter rankings. Minnesota Vikings 12-2, beating the Chicago Bears pretty convincingly, if I might add, 30-12. Chicago's not an impressive win, but Sam Darnold did what he needed to do. Aaron Jones did what he needed to do. Justin Jefferson scoring a touchdown and then dedicating it to Randy Moss, who is battling cancer. We're wishing him the best as he goes through his journey. Jordan Addison played pretty well, 7 catches, 63 yards in his own right on 9 targets. TJ Hawkinson, 5 catches, 52 yards on 7 targets. Minnesota did this without Stephon Gilmore, which was really huge. The Bears ended up having DeAndre Swift. But Minnesota, again, your record tells you what you are in most cases. And at 12-2, 7-1 at home, Minnesota, they other than that 2-game slide after starting 5-0, they've won 7 straight, and they are worthy of being in these top quarter rankings. Now, come in at number 5, this team lost, so I had to drop them just slightly because I still believe in this team. They lost to another team on the top quarter rankings, the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Steelers lost 13-27 on the road against Philly, and Philly's just clicking on all cylinders in the Bald Sirianni era. Jalen Hurts, 25-32, 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley held to under 65 yards rushing. Only held to 2 catches, 9 yards. Now, if you just didn't have A.J. Brown, if you didn't have Devontae Smith, this could have been a different story. If the Pittsburgh Steelers could have gotten the ground game going. Najee Harris at 6 carries for 14 yards isn't going to cut it. I mentioned Chris DeLuca, the host of Dugout Debrief, the baseball podcast. He probably wants something different there. But give your kudos to the Pittsburgh Steelers, everything they've done, everything they've overcome as well. This is still a viable threat, sitting at 10-4 and atop the AFC North. And then my number 4 team also lost. It's the Detroit Lions. Detroit drops from 2-4. And the thing with the Detroit Lions is they lost to Buffalo. And do you remember me calling this game, by the way? Everybody, I was the lone wolf on the Cowboys game. I was the lone wolf on the Buffalo game. And I don't know why, because everybody saw Buffalo lose to the Rams. I'm like, they're not dropping 2 straight. But the Detroit Lions, 38 of 59, 494 yards, 5 touchdowns. The worst part of this was the Lions didn't expect David Montgomery to go down. But when Montgomery went down, Jahmyr Gibbs, he struggled, but the Lions were fighting an uphill battle most of this game. Starting the game 14-0 in a deficit after the first quarter, but Sam Laporta, probably the best game he's had. 7 catches on 10 targets, 111 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 14 catches on 18 targets, 193 yards and a touchdown. If you think they are throwing to a guy 18 times and you only stop him 4 times, guys, come on. This is still a good offense despite the injury to David Montgomery. They've had their own fair share of injuries on the defensive side, most notably to Aiden Hutchinson, a former first-round pick by the Detroit Lions who wrecks games. But the Detroit Lions, I still consider them at number 4, even if they are losing to Buffalo and they lost to Tampa. They had the longest win streak the NFL had seen. So it was only a matter of time. They lost to a good team in Buffalo, and now they have the Bears. They have the 49ers until they're back for their final home game and their final game of the regular season against the Minnesota Vikings. They should handle business against Chicago. They should handle business against San Francisco. But it'll be that Minnesota game to see if the Detroit Lions finish 15-2 and potentially atop the NFC. But the team they lost to this past week are the Buffalo Bills. Guys, I was so tempted, even at 11-3, I was so tempted to make Buffalo my number 1 team or my number 2 team because they've beaten the Detroit Lions. They've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the only team to claim victories over those 2 high-powered teams. And that's what the playoffs are about. Proving that you can win those games. Josh Allen, 23 of 34, 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 carries, 68 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Everyone counted him out. James Cook, 14 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ty Johnson was the best receiver for the Buffalo Bills. 5 catches, 114 yards on 5 targets. Keon Coleman, a 64-yard catch. Josh Allen basically put the team on his back on the road against a red-hot Detroit Lions team and outscored them. If it's not Saquon Barkley, I'm starting to even lose ground on the Derrick Henry MVP debate. Then it's going to be Josh Allen. If they want to give it to a quarterback, if they don't want to give it to Saquon Barkley, especially with Philadelphia being a high-powered offense, you give it to Josh Allen, who had to deal with just a rookie Keon Coleman as his number 1 target early this season before acquiring Amari Cooper, who hasn't even made that big of a leap. Loses Stephon Diggs, and he's turned over the ball less, getting his team to an 11-3 run. Josh Allen makes a very, very strong case for the MVP. And another one making a strong case, I mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles, as I mentioned, had a tough task against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they won. And you look at the teams that Philadelphia has beaten on this 10-game winning streak. You got Cleveland, okay. You got the Giants, okay. You got the Bengals, okay. You got the Jaguars, okay. You get the Cowboys, okay. Commanders, at that point in the season, yeah, that's a quality win. The Rams, they're hovering around that 500 mark, but still very high-powered on that offensive side of the ball. Okay, you beat the Baltimore Ravens on the road? Yeah, that's a quality win. Carolina, you beat Carolina, and they were actually making some steam and making some ground. Carolina doesn't have a good record, but they gave Philly fits. And then you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers by 2 touchdowns. The team that's just made it work and revived the career of Russell Wilson. It just makes sense that the Philadelphia Eagles would be one of the top teams in the NFL. Now that they're healthy, which are what the 49ers are not, which is what the Cowboys are not, the Eagles are healthy. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley didn't even have his best game. But when A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith both have more than 8 catches, both have more than 100 yards, both that contribute a touchdown, this team's hard to beat. When you have players on the defensive side like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Josh Sweat, Cooper DeJean, Kenyon Mitchell stepping up, Darius Slay. This team is loaded on both sides of the football, and they are a force to be reckoned with. And come in, number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys can say whatever you want. This team has lost 1 game to Buffalo. They go on the road and beat a pretty bad Browns team. Patrick Mahomes, 19 of 38, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not his best game. Also, high sprained ankle. We talked about it on yesterday's Out of Pocket. We'll see what this team looks like if they have to rely on Carson Wentz the last few games of the year, which I think they should. They should not risk Patrick Mahomes for basically meaningless games as they have already wrapped up their division. Kareem Hunt, 45 yards on the ground. Pacheco, 32 yards on the ground. This is this is right before the team released Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a former first-round pick who is yet to be picked up, to my knowledge. Xavier Worthy, starting to make plays. 3 carries, 30 yards, a touchdown. Was the team's leading receiver, 6 catches on 11 targets, 46 yards. D-Hop, 5 catches, 36 yards. Travis Kelce hasn't needed to be a big part of this offense because they can rely on other guys stepping up, like Noah Gray. 2 catches, 21 yards, a touchdown. He's been a red zone target this year and could very well be the guy, by the way, from Duke, a career high so far in yards, in targets, in catches, and we still have 3 games to go. Noah Gray could very well be the replacement of Travis Kelce. So keep that in mind. And while they have all these people here, and Jason asking himself, the Bills beat the Chiefs and Lions and they are third. That 3 win, I can't put a 3-loss team at number 1. That is the only thing. They did lose to the LA Rams, and we were all shaking our head like, what happened? But it's a week-by-week league. The Buffalo Bills lost 2 games back-to-back on the road, Ravens and Texans earlier in the year after starting 3-0. And then they've won all except 1 game. So it's been about 8 of their last 9 they've won. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Lions. Outside of that, you're looking for quality wins like the Jets, the Titans. Seahawks on the road, maybe not as strong as it used to be. The Dolphins, who are very riddled with injuries, especially to some key players. And the Colts and the 49ers. Like, the Buffalo Bills are a top 3 team in the NFL. There are shenanigans, maybe, who knows. But this is the top core rankings that I full-heartedly believe in. You could easily put You could easily put the Buffalo Bills at number 1 if they didn't have 3 losses. Minnesota, they started 5-0. They dropped 2 straight. It's just, if I had Minnesota versus Pittsburgh, I'm taking Pittsburgh. If I have Detroit versus Minnesota, I'm taking Detroit. If I have Buffalo versus Minnesota, I'm taking Buffalo, obviously, so on and so forth. Minnesota, how long? How long can Sam Darnold keep this up? He's been very impressive. He's exceeded all my expectations. 7-1 at home. But again, you're looking at who they've beaten. And since losing the Lions and the Rams, they beat the Colts, okay, Jaguars, okay, Titans, okay, Bears, okay, Cardinals, all right, Falcons, especially Kirk Cousins, preventing a revenge game, and then the Bears. If Minnesota can beat Green Bay, and if Minnesota can beat Detroit, the last 2 games of the year, they're obviously going to move up. And Sam Darnold, you can say all the words you want to me, all right? I'll listen to them, but it doesn't matter. You're the 6th-ranked team in the top quarter rankings this week. Now, this is a very quick and brief episode. Got a busy night ahead of me, so this is all we're covering on Out of Pocket, unfortunately. But we have content. Shannon dropped quick hits today. Tomorrow, Jason's going to join Wayne for Sideline Savants for your fantasy football playoff advice. And Out of Pocket will be back tomorrow. The day after tomorrow. They'll be back on Thursday at 5:30, and we'll probably do our NFL picks on Thursday or Friday. We'll see how we're feeling. You beat who is in front of you. Jason, that's a great point. That's a great point, but I'm not valuing 2 wins over the Bears and the Titans and the Jags over what some of these other teams have done. That it just might be an imposter syndrome for Minnesota, just based on their schedule. They could very well be a one and done, especially if they meet a team like Philadelphia or Detroit in these playoffs, which they would be meeting probably. They'd probably be beating the NFC South winner or the NFC West winner. So, maybe the Buccaneers, maybe the Rams, maybe the Seahawks, maybe the Falcons. We'll see what happens moving forward for Minnesota. But these are my top core rankings. Jason doesn't agree with them, obviously. But you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. And Out of Pocket will be back to see you guys on Thursday.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.